Well, they like to coin the term spiritual warfare, because we have spiritual
that
warfare, and it's going on all around us, angels and demons.
yeah, well, and they like wielding out the term crusade, which
That's where the guilt, shame, and fear all like to be dogpiled on you. They love doing that.
So is today all an extension of the Crusades?
Yeah,
Well,
actually,
it kind of is. Like it's so strange because it's like, in a lot of ways, it's like both like the religious extremism and um, the Iranian government is kind of similar to, Christian evangelical extreme Christianity is here. They just, it's kind of like where I saw this guru one time. He says, all like religion breeds conflict. It's just basically my God is blue, my God is yellow, my God is green, my God is red.
So I was having a discussion with somebody actually about religion. Surprise, surprise, me doing that. But we were talking about how religion, it's the belief in God, or the actions or the interaction of an individual with God is not the problem. The problem becomes when the system becomes organized and people take advantage of the system. The whole thing that spawned Jesus was, and John the Baptist and everything else, was the abuses by the Jewish clerics taking advantage of the system and controlling the economics effectively of the Jewish state at that time for their own ends. And you then look at Martin Luther. Martin Luther's protest was the exact same thing. You guys are abusing this system. What are you doing? And you then look at another schism within the Judeo-Christian sphere. So, I mean, it's not necessarily the us versus them. It's the organizers of those religions using that as a way of power and drive and control. It's part of the reason I don't have a problem with religion. I have a problem with organized religion. And the funny thing was, this other person just summed it up almost exactly how I was thinking it, is the fact that it's like, I don't care what you believe, but don't expect me to believe it, and we deal with each other in a fair way. That's how it has to work. If it doesn't work that way, then we're not in a society together. You're in it by yourself. Those kind of things.
It's just kind of like, it just trips me out with like the audacity of these people to judge, like a whole nother culture that they have no idea of, when in reality they probably have so much in common. It's just that they don't believe in us,
Well, I think the thing that strikes me as interesting is how times have changed. Because I know when I went to high school in Alabama, it was, Jews killed Jesus, they're bad, but they're God's chosen people, but they're bad. Yet now I see those same people who would say that back then turning around and going, oh, we have to protect. And I'm not against protecting Israel. I think all people, the Jews have shown in Israel that they can defend their territory, and they've taken it over. Unfortunately for the Palestinians, it happened to be the land that they were on. I don't necessarily approve of that either. I don't approve of how they've handled the Palestinians in relation to it. There's a whole lot that's a whole nother story to unpack. But at the end of the day, the lack of consistency makes me wonder where the source is that the Christian right, not even Christian right, where the evangelical Christians have done a complete and utter about face. I mean, you can't tell me that, like, the Nazis were, a lot of their support on all of that was Christian based. You can't tell me that the violence committed against the Jews during the Crusades wasn't Christian related. You can't tell me that forcing Jews into ghettos in Venice and Hungary and Poland and Germany and France, kicking them out of England and Spain. You can't tell me that any of that wasn't Christians exerting something against Jews based on a religious belief. I mean, a little bit of the German thing is like who had the money and pushing people around. That's a whole different story. But there is that organized religious component of it, of sacrificial lambs. And it's interesting to see, and I don't think we'll ever get an understanding how Christian, like the Christian motivation, especially evangelical, has gone and done this humongous about face in about 20 or 30 years. Because this is not what they were saying in the 90s. Not at all.
I mean, this has like been their dream. Like this is what they've wanted to do. And now I feel like that those era of conservatives, they're kind of like in their death throes in terms of influence. And now they're trying to get as whatever they can to just try to keep whatever influence they have left. I don't know what I'm trying to say here.
I kind of get where you're going, that it's the transition of the baby boomers withdrawing the last bit of power out of the system. I mean, but there's something with a cultural shift like that, and I can say that I know some people who are Jewish, including family members, who their experience in the South was very similar to what I experienced. So I don't think what I experienced is an isolated incident. I think it's much, much broader. And it's not to say that all groups were like that, but it was vocal enough that, there isn't a very large Jewish population outside of in the Deep South. It may be larger now as tolerance has grown, but it really wasn't in the 90s. But with that out there, when you're looking at this, what has caused this shift? Has Israel been really good at doing propaganda? Have Jewish organizations in America been really good at propaganda and getting the message out of unity? I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I mean, it's a good thing that there's been a change in the disposition. I think the concern I have is if you're critical of Israel, how is that necessarily a bad thing as an American? If I'm critical of Russia, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm anti-Russian. If I'm critical of Nigeria, it doesn't mean I'm anti-Nigerian. It just means I have a concern of what the government in Nigeria is doing. It's a concern I have what the Russian government is doing. It's a concern I have that the government of Israel.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I think many of them will take it as an attack on their identity and on their faith if you criticize Israel.
Oh, 100%.
And that's why they get triggered. And that's why when they start to talk about their faith is under attack, when they are the ones that are willfully going out and trying to proselytize and make quote unquote fishers of men, because they feel that their ideology commands them to do that.
I had to stop a conversation with a friend in relation to it was post the West Bank, not West Bank, the Gaza attack that really started the downfall of the Palestinians, or the recent downfall of the Palestinians. It was soon, like maybe 3 months after that, and we're sitting down and we're talking about it, and they made a comment. They're like, they deserve what they're getting, and I had to turn around and I was like, you need to stop this conversation right now.
Yeah.
If you want me to continue having respect for you, because yes, Israel had a right to retaliate. I mean, the attack was brutal. It was heinous. It was definitely a desperation attempt by the Palestinians, but it was done by one of their splinter groups. The retaliation on Gaza is out of proportion. I mean, how you can justify the level of destruction and murder that has gone on, and what they are now turning around and doing to Hezbollah and the Muslims in Lebanon. It's indiscriminate fire. And I can't justify that. I can't justify the Russians doing it to the Ukrainians no more than I can justify the Israelis doing it to the Palestinians. If we're going to be the better people as a world, we have to stand up for that. And going back to our current administration is acting like those two political leaders. They're acting like animals, and that everybody else but themselves are chattel to be led to the slaughter. And it doesn't matter who dies in the process of committing to their goals. And I get that if you want to go total war, yeah, that is the way it goes. But we can't be that. If we want the better world, we have to work towards it. We have to make the sacrifices to get there. And like, these people are just out to rape the world for what they can get. It's take from me and to hell with it, all the rest of you.
Well, it's the whole bit of want to bring about the rapture because they believe that this world is a very sinful world and has been infected by Satan and is therefore will pass away because that's what's prophesized in the Bible. So in terms of like climate change, preserving the planet, taking care of our planet, taking care of our forests, taking care of, people that, they're all about, protecting their people. But if you're brown or black or whatever, they don't really care. I certainly don't see Christ represented. And I understand how that may be difficult for some people to take, hearing from me, but I think that they're based on their actions over the last decade and their support of this administration. It has been very damaging and irreparable for their brand.
For the brand.
Yeah.
We're gonna.
I mean, I'm just calling it like I see it. I'm like, this is not how you win people to your cause.
Well, so going back to propaganda, and this is something that you're talking about, the rapture. So conceptually, the rapture was propaganda. It was tomorrow could come at any point and you need to be ready.
Yeah.
And you won't know if it happens. So it's a perpetually being on the edge of your seat. Has that message been co-opted? And this is going into like weirdo conspiracy territory, but let's assume that the Jewish lobby has set out propaganda to be pro-Jewish, which I'm fine with. That's good. We should be. I mean, there should be pro-black propaganda. There should be pro whatever. We should be pro everybody. Like that. At the end of the day, except for maybe pedophiles. No, sorry, you fuckers need to burn. But and maybe the animal fuckers. Those guys need to go too. Okay, there's a list of people we don't need to be pro. I don't want to get into that. It could turn into a really long list. But in relation to it, the I wonder if you can. We know that the billionaire class has determined that they can't save this world. There's been way too many reports out there that they're not looking at this as, oh, we're going to preserve this. It's how do we get what we can get out of it and be safe?
Yeah. I don't really think they care.
They don't. Well, it's not just that they don't care, but if those stories are true, they don't think there is a possibility of saving it. So it's not an investment of trying to save it. It's just trying to be able to be on the right side and survive and rebuild on the other end of whatever that occurs. And if they've been living with that concept and they've been bringing that around, where do we go from there? And so in some ways, the question is, how much has the propaganda been filtered in through them and using these networks and these religious networks to filter in this propaganda of, hey, you know what? We don't need to worry about the earth. We need to worry about our revenue right now because it matters whether or not you live or die, not whether or not your kids live or die, because rapture is going to happen tomorrow. So
now imagine growing up and being indoctrinated with that kind of thinking. You pretty much grew up as your childhood. You're constantly like, your anxiety's like through the roof because, you know, you need to be ready in case Jesus comes back. So, I mean, it's like when I say things like about how critical I am of certain ideologies, you know, it's because like there's documented evidence that these kinds of things happen. And I don't think a lot of people really recognize that these kinds of things go on. So
I'm with you. To be dependent upon the concept of the rapture means you're giving up on the current existence that you are living now. You are fully paying forward to an existence that does not exist yet. It doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense to me.
I mean, really, it sounds like to me, like now that I've like stepped out of that and looking in at that, it's like, God, that's like so dangerous to me, you know, now, you know, like to live your life like that, you know.
It's the same mentality of when you hear people going, oh, well, you know, they're just willing to die for their religion, and they start talking that crap about Muslims, and it's like, you do realize when you start talking about the rapture and that like this existence now is irrelevant, that you die for the honor of your God, is the same exact language. You are attempting to create Christian martyrs versus Muslim martyrs. It's zero difference. The only difference is what banner you are flagging when you vote.